All right, so if you're watching this, it means that we have finished all of our content for the fourth quarter and really for the year. And so that means that what we're going to do is we are going to move on to thinking about college stuff. That's going to be our focus for the end of the school year, the last couple weeks that we've got. So, what I want to do is start thinking about college applications and particularly college essays. I know you're so excited about that, right? So we're going to do a lot of college-related work at the start of next year together in class, particularly when we talk about applications. But one thing that we can do right now to kind of get you started is to have you go ahead and start thinking about the essay that you need to write for your college application. And so I want to go over some of the best things that you can do to make your college essay fantastic and great. And then I also want to talk about some of the things that you probably really need to avoid when you are creating your college essay. Today we're going to be talking about some of the college essay tips that you can use as you go to write your college essay. A lot of the information from this site is from College Board's Big Future site, which has a lot of great information and guidance. And a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today is adapted from that site. So the first thing the first piece of advice they give is to make sure that you highlight yourself. You want to highlight yourself in a way that generates interest. You don't want to necessarily talk about the particular college that you're going to because they know that, right? This is their admissions office. So you don't need to tell them about themselves. You don't need to talk in general terms about the amount of dedication it takes to pursue the career that you're interested in. And you don't also need to laundry list the activities that you took part in high school. What you want to do is share your personal story and thoughts. And you want to make sure that you take a creative approach, and you can see it's italicized here. You want to highlight areas that aren't covered in other parts of your application, like your transcripts, right? Or like the resume that you're providing them, or your SSAR, or anything like that. You want to make sure that you are giving them information that they can't get from any other part of your application. This is your chance to kind of tell them about yourself in an interesting and a unique way. So I want to say a few words about this idea of highlighting something about yourself in your college essay. So the first thing is, if you're a person who has maybe kind of something strange going on with your numbers on your transcript or on your application, right? Maybe freshman year was a little rough for you, right? For whatever reason. Maybe there is a sudden dip in the beginning of your junior year where you were ill or something like that and you were out for a long period of time. Maybe there was something going on personally that you really affected the way that you approach school, right? And so there's this kind of strange gap, or there's this strange kind of thing going on. This is the place where you should contextualize that, right? Your essay is the place that the admissions office is giving you the space to say, hey, I know that this looks kind of funny on my application or on my transcript. Please let me explain to you what's going on here, right? It contextualizes the numbers in a way that is going to be helpful to you. So if that is you, if there's something that you feel like you want to kind of explain on your college application or on your transcript, the essay is a really great place to get that done. The other thing, if that's not you, right? If everything is fine, your numbers are great, you're pleased, whatever. What you want to think about is, I don't have anything to explain about that. What you want to think about is, well, what can I talk about? You want to think about what is it that makes you who you are, right? What is it that you want this admissions office to know about you that they won't be able to see on your transcript, or that they won't be able to see from your resume, or that they won't be able to see from your list of classes? Think about what it is outside of school that is special and important to you, that you wouldn't be yourself without that, right? So that's what you want to think about, is what is important to me, right? And how can I communicate that in this essay? So those are kind of the two things that you want to think about when you're approaching this essay. Is there something I need to explain or contextualize, or give them more information about? And the second thing is, if that's not you, like I said, then what is it about me that I really need the admissions office to know to get a better and more clear understanding of who I am as a total person, and not just numbers on a page?
So the next thing we want to address is the focus of this. So we talked about choosing something that is important to you or something that explains or gives context to who you are. Once you've done that, make sure that you stay focused on that. What you want to do is make sure that you are not trying to cover too many topics. You don't want a laundry list. They've already got a list of your activities. They've already got your transcript. You want to go in depth into one particular area of focus. So what you want to make sure that you can do is that as you are talking about this particular area, you are making sure that you are being very deeply focused on it. You don't want to try to shoehorn too many things into this area just because it all sounds good. Choose one area and stay very narrowly focused on that. The next thing you want to do is show, don't tell, right? This should sound really familiar if you've been in my slang class. You don't want to state something. You don't want to state a fact, as it says on the slide, such as, I like to surround myself with people with a variety of backgrounds and interests. That is very vague. It does not tell them anything about you, right? You want to make sure that you include specific details, examples, reasons. What is it about this topic that is so interesting to you or that is so important to you, and how can you illustrate that, right? Think about the concrete things that you can discuss that are going to give the admissions officers kind of this interesting and specific picture about who you are and why this is significant. The next thing, you want to make sure that you use your own voice. Try to stay away from cliches. It is so easy to fall into cliches in a college application essay, but you need to try to stay away from that as much as possible. The one thing I want to say about this is that, remember, it's not a formal essay. You should definitely sound like yourself. It's good if you sound like yourself. But I do want to remind you of the medium, right? You are, and who the audience is, right? This is supposed to be an essay that is going to an admissions office. So while it is not a formal academic essay, it is a place where you should put your best foot forward, right? So you want to think about a conversational tone. You want to think about making connections with your audience, but you also don't want to fall into slang, right? You don't want to fall into a tone that is too kind of intimate or too personal. You want to make sure that you are engaging without being like weirdly oversharing. The last two things I want to talk about are about making sure that you are paying attention to what you're writing about. And so first I want to talk about proofreading. You want to make sure that you proofread your essay carefully before you submit it. And do not focus just on your computer spell check to catch things. You can see in the two examples on this slide that we have, after I graduate, form high school. From that day on, Daniel was my best fried. Form and fried are both real words. And so because of that, your computer spell check is not going to pick them up. It's not going to flag them as errors, but they are errors. And so you need to make sure that you have a human to proofread your papers, please. So that way they can double check this. And more than one human, right? Don't put it on just me. Make sure that you have lots of people look at your essay to pick up on strange things like that. The last thing I want to say, you want to talk about things that make you unique. And so I want to bring your attention to the second bullet on this page. It says try to avoid things like being president of a club, mission trips, or your high school employment. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. You want to make sure that you are focusing on the unique aspects of them or something interesting that you got from them. You want to make sure you think outside the box. And you also want to make sure that, as we just talked about with proofreading, you want to make sure that you proofread before you give the essay to a teacher or another adult, because you want to make sure that you have caught major errors in sentence structure and capitalization. You also want to make sure that you are using paragraphs. It needs to be a fairly complete essay before you turn it in. You cannot just turn in a block of text to your proofreader or your teacher or whoever before you submit and expect them to do that editing work for you. So please make sure that whatever you give to your proofreader or your person or your human is something that is an actual essay. I want to talk about this idea of uniqueness, because this is something that kind of comes up over and over again. So on the last slide, you saw that there were three things that I told you not to talk about, right? Being president of a club, your high school employment, and going on mission trips. And I know many of you are like, I'm sorry, Gilbert, what am I supposed to write about now? Because those are the three things that I was going to write about.
you need to find something different to write about. I want you to consider how many applications each school gets, and I want you to consider how many of those specific essays those admissions officers are reading. You are not going to set yourself apart in the way that you want to if you are talking about your high school employment, your mission trip, or your stint as the president of a club, because that is what literally every high school student is going to talk about. If I will say, there is a caveat to that. If you can approach those topics in a way that is interesting, if you can approach those topics in a way that is unique, then they become better to write about. I will say, if you can create a unique and interesting approach to one of those topics, unique and interesting are the two key words there, then they become better topics to deal with. One of the best essays that I read was actually a high school employment essay, right? Which feels strange because I just went, don't write about that. But this is a student who a couple years ago was the birthday captain at Adventure Landing, and she hated it. She hated it so much. And so she approached it from that way, right? Your normal high school employment essay is going to be about, I had all of these responsibilities, and look how well I executed these responsibilities, and I learned responsibility. And this student was all about how much she hated her job. However, instead of just talking about how much she hated it, that was the initial part where she established that. She talked about how everything smelled like hot dog water. She talked about how she never wanted to see a balloon or a birthday cake again. So the beginning of the essay was very humorous and engaging, right? It drew in the reader in a way that was really interesting. And then she took that and she flipped it, right? And she talked about, even though I hated this job, here were the lessons that she learned from it, right? And they were not your traditional, like, I learned to be responsible. She talked about perseverance, and she talked about the idea of fulfilling a task, right? So, and especially in the face of, like, not adversity, because there was nothing wrong, the only adversity was her, like, internal desire not to be doing it. So, approaching one of these topics in a way that is maybe not your traditional approach, that is a way to use one of them. But I'm going to caution you and say that can be very difficult to do, right? So my advice to you is to make sure that you are talking about, that you're talking about something that is more interesting and more personal, right? You're also going to write better about a topic that is more personal to you. So like I said a couple minutes ago, anything about you that these admissions officers can't find on the paper, right? Something that is specific to you and unique to you, something that makes you feel yourself. Those are the things that you want to try to work in. The other thing that comes up all the time is this idea of bad things, right? Like college essays have to be about bad things that have happened, right? Some sort of trauma or some sort of struggle or adversity. And while a lot of the prompts do kind of lend themselves to those or, kind of announce that, I've had students come to me in the past and go, nothing bad has happened to me. I can't write a college essay, or I don't have anything that's going to be interesting, right? I'm not interesting because I don't have trauma. Untrue, absolutely not. What you want to do is think about, like we said, what are the things about you that you feel like the admissions officers need to know? What do you bring to the table, right? What would your best friend say about you? How would they describe you? How would they characterize you? So you can think about it that way. What is important about you that you need these admissions officers to know? And like I said, it doesn't always have to be about the bad things. So your assignment is to, first of all, research and find the application question for your top school of choice. So what I've done is I've listed some of the most requested schools below with links to their prompts. And this slideshow itself, just the PowerPoint itself, will be available to you on our course website, so that way you can access it from there. And so you should be able to get right to those prompts. I have found them for you. If you are not interested in attending UF, FSU, or UCF, you're going somewhere else, please go ahead and research that and figure out, what is the essay question that you are going to have to answer. For some of you, that might be the Common App. And if that's the case, those essay prompts are already published as well. And so you can get those and use those. Now, if you cannot find a topic for your first choice school, find it for your second choice school, or use one of the Common App prompts. What you cannot do is say, I can't do this assignment because I can't find the essay prompt. find an essay prompt and use it. Essays are very, very easy to adapt from one school to another and from one prompt to another. So my biggest thing right now is making sure that you just kind of get this out into the world. Once you find the essay prompt, what you want to do is copy and paste the prompt itself, as well as any guidelines that are that go along with it, like word count or page count or character count. I want you to copy and paste that to the top of your document, and then you're going to write the essay. Remember what we discussed today in our lesson. Remember to follow any guidelines set by the school, and make sure to fully answer the question or questions set by the school. Sometimes they ask you more than one question within the prompt. Please look at your assignment sheet, and you need to make sure that you submit your essay to turnitin.com by the date and time that is specified on that assignment sheet itself. If you are looking for more tips or more ideas or things like that, you can go to the link at the bottom of this page, and it gives you some interesting ways to approach some of the more commonly asked application essay questions. So that's it. That's all I've got as far as college essay questions go. I'm looking forward to reading these. I always feel like I find out so much about you guys when you write your college application essays. So I'm excited to get to read them. There are lots of other great resources on the internet to help you kind of ideas about how to approach things that you want to avoid, a lot of the things that we talked about here, but with some really interesting examples of what works and what doesn't. So please feel free to use the internet to kind of research and take a look at some essays themselves. And I'm really excited to see what you have to say. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.